The Cincinnati Bengals are in talks, or rumored to be in talks, with an NFL team about acquiring a pass rusher. That NFL team is the Tennessee Titans. And who is that pass rusher? No other than Harold Landry. Harold Landry was drafted by the Tennessee Titans in 2018 out of Boston College. And since then, he's been pretty consistent for the Tennessee Titans. And looking at the Cincinnati Bengals team, what has been their main struggle in 2024 so far? That has been their defense. And to prove this, I'm going to go on a long spiel about their defensive stats. Let's look. Here's the Cincinnati Bengals defensive stats so far in 2024. Opponents' points per game, 25.4, 23rd in the league. Opponents' yards per game, 358.6, 24th in the league. Opponents' yards per play, 5.3, 15th in the league. Opponents' third down conversion percentage, 45%. That's 27th in the league. Opponents' fourth down conversion percentage, 70, almost 71%, 28th in the league. Opponents' red zone scoring percentage, ending in a touchdown, 66%, 27th in the league. Opponents' touchdowns per game, 3, 27th. Opponents' rush play percentage, 47, 24th. Opponents' yards per rush, 4.3, 11. So the rush games, I guess, a little bit there. Opponents' rushes per game, 32, 29th. Opponents' rush yards per game, 139.3, 24th in the league. So no, rush game's not there actually. Opponents' rushing touchdowns, per game, 1.4, 29th in the league. Opponents' completion percentage, 64, almost 65%, 15th in the league. Opponents' yards per pass, 6.8, 10th in the league. Oh, passing games pretty well, I guess. Opponents' passes per game, 33, 22nd in the league. Opponents' pass yards per game, 219.4, 21st in the league. Never mind, the pass game isn't there either. The defense for the Cincinnati Bengals has been struggling this year. And what can be the main fix to this? Adding some depth on the defensive line. Cincinnati has 12 sacks this season, led by edge rusher superstar, in my opinion, Trey Hendrickson, who has a top 5 sacks in the league right now. I think he's 8 or 9 sacks this season. So he has more than 60% of the Cincinnati Bengals sacks this season. But 12 sacks this season, which ranks 31st in the league out of 32. 31st out of 32. One of the worst sacks rating in the league. And yes, there has been some injuries in our defensive line. Sheldon Rankins was out for a few weeks. B.J. Hill was out for a few weeks. Myles Murphy was down for a few weeks. Chris Jenkins was out for a few weeks. And we just drafted Chris Jenkins this season. Sam Hubbard wasn't 100% until literally this week or last week. We still don't even know if he's 100% now. But because of all of the injuries to our defensive line, our defense has struggled. We're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. Last Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, it felt like we couldn't even touch Jalen Hurts. The Eagles have one of the best O-line in the league, but that doesn't affect how we should be able to pressure the quarterback. And if you can't pressure the quarterback, one, if you go against a team with a good O-line like the Eagles, they have all the time in the world to pass down the field, and that's exactly what the Eagles did against Cincinnati. What did? They handed it off to Saquon, got 4 or 5 yards per play, and then they took a deep shot, and it happened a lot to both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And it happened a lot, and it also worked a lot because the defensive line isn't getting pressure on the QBs. And Harold Landry, this player who has 2 seasons with more or over 10 sacks in a season, could put some depth into that room, which might be exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals are needing right now. They need another veteran presence in that group to help on the opposite side. Trey Hendrickson and Harold Landry on both sides to help with Sam Hubbard, with Myles Murphy. That can be the solution that the Cincinnati Bengals need right now to just start winning some games. Not even worried about getting to the playoffs, turning this team to a Super Bowl team, but to just help the Cincinnati Bengals get some wins right now. What could be one factor in that could help is getting pressure on the QBs. And Harold Landry, I think, could be one of the solutions for this problem. Just putting another presence in the group itself might help the other guys come together as a whole and start getting pressure on the QBs. Now we were looking at the Bengals defensive stats. Let's look at Harold Landry's stats so far in his career and this season. This is Harold Landry's 2024 stats and his career stats. So in just 2024, he has 15 tackles, 4 sacks, and then 0 forced fumbles and 0 interceptions. Obviously, he's not going to get a lot of interceptions because he's a D lineman. But in his career, he has 45 and a half sacks. And 2 of those seasons, like I said earlier, came with over 10 sacks. He has 357 tackles his whole career. He has 3 forced fumbles and 2 fumble recoveries. So maybe he's not going to be the turnover machine that Cincinnati needs right now, but he's going to be another presence in that group to, one, help with rotation, help with Trey Hendrickson, because whenever Trey Hendrickson comes out of the game for a rest, because no player is going to be able to stay in the game every play, especially in the NFL, Trey Hendrickson comes out, the pass rush kind of doesn't go away completely, but it's obviously less effective with Trey Hendrickson out of the game. So whenever Trey Hendrickson is out of the game and you have Harold Landry in the game, that adds to the explosiveness of the Bengals defensive line, which could help once again get pressure on the QB. This could turn around. Think about it. If Cincinnati can't put pressure on the QB like they didn't do against the Eagles, what did Jalen Hurts have to do? Literally nothing. He just stood in the pocket, and then eventually, if you're giving the quarterback and the wide receivers in the NFL more than 5 seconds, they're going to get open. Someone is going to get open, especially if you're playing zone, which is what the Bengals play most of the time. If you're playing zone, if you give them 5 seconds to be in the pocket, just standing in the pocket, not even having to scramble, someone is going to be open, and they were open a lot on Sunday. So this rumored trade, I think, would be a win-win, because what the trade proposal is Cincinnati obtains Harold Landry, Tennessee Titans get a 4th-round pick. This would help both franchises, honestly. Cincinnati would get a solution to one of their problems now, which is putting pressure on the quarterback and getting sacks, which Harold Landry would help Cincinnati do, put pressure on the QB. But it also would help the Tennessee Titans by giving them another pick, because they're obviously in a rebuild stage, starting 1-6 in 2024. But why I think this could not turn Cincinnati into a Super Bowl team right now, but it could help us win games, especially with one of the easiest schedules remaining. And right now we're 3-5, so we have to win probably 7 out of the last 9 games, which is hard. But to do that and to put ourselves in the best position to be able to do that, you need to put pressure on the QB. And I think Harold Landry is one of the answers for that problem. Like I said, Trey Hendrickson goes out, Landry is in, and then you have Sam Hubbard on the other side with B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins in the middle. That's a great defensive line that can get pressure onto the QB. But when you don't have Harold Landry out there and Trey Hendrickson comes out, you're either putting Myles Murphy out there with Sam Hubbard, and then you don't know if Sheldon Rankins is going to be 100% because he's still battling with some injuries, and same with B.J. Hill. They're all of them are banged up. Even Trey Hendrickson is a little bit banged up. Adding another presence, a veteran presence in that group could be exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals need to start putting pressure on the QBs, which is one, obviously pressuring the QBs makes QBs scramble, and there's some QBs in the league that can't throw on the run. And that also helps your secondary, because the secondary for Cincinnati has been struggling, like we saw earlier with the defensive stats. Pressuring the QB, making them move in the pocket or scramble, helps the secondary, because then the wide receivers have to react to what the QB is doing. But if you're putting pressure on the QB, that gives the secondary enough time, like literally a second or two, which is exactly what the secondary needs, to readjust to whatever the wide receiver is doing to lock them down again. Like Eagles, a perfect example for what I'm talking about. Cincinnati wasn't putting any pressure on Jalen Hurts. And because of this, their wide receivers and Jalen Hurts could do whatever they wanted to do, and the secondary for Cincinnati really had no help and couldn't do anything about it. But if you start pressuring the QB, that gives the secondary that 1 or 2 seconds that they need to readjust to what the wide receivers are doing, depending on the coverage, depending on the play that they're running. That will give them that 1 or 2 seconds that they need to readjust and lock down the wide receivers going forward. So this is exactly what the Bengals need to do. I think this would be a win for both Cincinnati and Tennessee. I'd love to see it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Remember to subscribe to Bengals Digest. I'm Carson Lokey. I'll see you next time.